following the entrepreneur and small business startups in San Diego, because I kind of fall into that, and trying to be one of the 2% that creates a successful business. I've been working with my son. He's built a wearable device that measures muscle fatigue and hydration. So we're trying to bring that to market. And through the doctorate program at Alliant, I've been given the opportunity to look at marketing and focus it on my personal project of the emerging wearable technology industry. So my presentation today will provide a brief introduction. I'll go over my methodology for the study, then discuss the findings, a little bit of discussion, and the conclusions. Wearable technology sales are forecasted to grow to $57 billion by 2022. Yet new entries to the market struggle. There are very few that make it to capture a significant portion of the market. Apple currently owns about 35% of the market. Samsung holds a considerate amount. And then the remaining wearable technology companies, if they're lucky, own maybe 3 to 4% each. Given that it's a $57 billion market, that's still a significant amount. So a new wearable technology company that wants to capture a portion of that growth needs to be nimble and futuristic with its marketing strategy. Wearable marketing failures, Google Glass is a prime example of a wearable technology that failed spectacularly. Nintendo had a Power Glove. Nike had its Fuel Band. Wearable needs to be, it's digital, and right now there are around 431 wearable technology devices out there. The average price is about $326. And there are about 267 companies that are trying to capture the market. So the study is directly related to emerging trends in the field of business and marketing. It'll hopefully further research on the understanding of how marketing is utilized in organizational strategy for business, as well as social influencing and organizational learning. For the study, I did a systematic qualitative review of literature. I created a spreadsheet from that review of literature and did a content analysis of themes and trends, looking at marketing frameworks, looking at micro-marketing, macro-marketing. And then I also did an examination of grounded theory behind the marketing concepts. I collected qualitative research data on the themes and the best practices into a spreadsheet, as I said. And then I also did a qualitative and quantitative data analysis and data collection for 20 wearable technology products. I wanted to see who they sold to, what their price point was, looking at the 4 Ps of a traditional marketing approach, just to try to understand what's working and what's not. The research hypothesis for the study was that new entry wearable technology companies that use a micro-marketing framework approach rather than a macro-marketing approach will be more successful at capturing market share in the growing technology market. My thought behind this was that it seemed as though the niche products, Apple owns the world. Apple owns the wearable technology world. As I said, they have 35% of the market. So my theory was that to capture a piece of it, you needed to be a niche. You needed to find a specific need, but from the consumers, from the customers, and then meet that need. As you'll see through my study, that did not play out. The research questions that I looked at were, what is the difference between a macro marketing approach and a micro marketing approach? Do existing wearable technology companies use macro or micro marketing techniques? Did the wearable technologies that failed use micro marketing campaigns? Then does marketing research discuss micro-marketing for wearable technology? And how can a wearable tech company use a micro-marketing strategy? Throughout the course of my research, that last question morphed into more of just a general question: what kind of marketing strategy will work best for a wearable tech company? So here you can see the list of the 20 wearable tech companies that I picked. I went for a global approach. Let's see if I can move this. Apple Watch, of course, was at the top. And 15% of the companies and some of the newer entries have switched to a service subscription model rather than a product model. However, most of the companies are focusing on product. So a wearable tech company going into the industry, looking to enter the industry, should perhaps consider a service subscription. The newer entries are going for service subscription, although I do think that is a kind of the latest phase in looking for revenue models. But let's see next. My search for literature, it failed to find a decisive marketing framework. I wasn't able to find the answer of which approach I should use. The comparative analysis of the marketing approaches looked at digital marketing versus regular marketing versus just focusing on communication versus focusing on the research analysis. So that there wasn't a single framework that captured the entire in the literature that I found that captured that gave an answer to providing a framework. One resource that I did find that was quite useful was actually provided through the International Olympic Committee Business Accelerator website, and it provides a whiteboard that includes most of the components that a marketing strategy and a marketing framework should include. So this wasn't in the research literature. This was something I found outside of my research for the study, but I feel it's probably one of the better resources. You want to look at the customer segments, the customer relations. You need to know your value proposition, your key activities, who your key partners are, who your key resources, what they are, what channels you want to use, what your revenue stream could look like, and what your cost structure is going to look like. Another, not in the research, but just looking at marketing frameworks, this one I found was interesting. It kind of shows the iterative and complexity of a marketing approach. How it's not a straight line problem. You take your idea and you develop it. You go to a prototype, and that might send you back right into product testing. It might send you back to, you might decide you have a different idea that'll work better, which leads you back to market research. So it's rather than a straight line approach, a marketing framework needs to have an iterative process. The important thing, one of the key components that popped out in the research was you want to start with your strategy and you need to understand the customer. One of the interesting things, and I think this is one of the reasons that the wearable tech companies fail, as you can see from this slide, if I see you collapse, I'll pause your garment. What kind of information is that technology providing if you can stop it? If you're running a marathon and you decide to take a break and you pause your smartwatch, your results aren't real. So the question and the biggest problem that I've found is getting the customer to understand the usefulness of the data and learning how to use it. So within strategy, the traditional marketing frameworks remain important. The price, product, promotion, and place, those still remain key. And then through the research, I developed this marketing framework that it should include the goals. You need to look at your time of entry and your product attributes. You need to identify your target audiences. You need to know your competitive landscape. So you need to not only know yourself, you need to know the competition. You need to understand what their strengths are and how you differentiate. You need to create a story. You need to be able to relate the story of how your product can change lives. You also need to identify which channels you want to sell through. And then based on all that information, you need to pull it all together into your tactical plan. So the research questions that I had asked leading into this research study was, what is the difference between a macro marketing approach and a micro marketing approach as it relates to wearable tech? And the difference is micro marketing considers the customer, the product, and the one-to-one relationships, the niche, while macro marketing looks at the position of the strategy in the industry. So one is looking inside and one is looking at the whole. The other question was, do existing wearable technology companies use macro or micro marketing techniques? What I found is the successful ones use both. Again, my original hypothesis was that a micro marketing approach would be the best approach, and through the research, it became clear that you need to not only understand yourself, but you also do need to understand where you stand in the technology market, and you can't develop a successful strategy without first understanding the universe, the outside. Another question was, did wearable technologies that failed use micro marketing campaigns? They used both. Google Glass, I would say, used both a micro and a macro. A lot of the niche, smaller companies that don't have the backing of Google did try to use the micro marketing tech campaigns. They did try to go after the niche. There's like the Aura ring, rings and jewelry that were sort of like, kind of like a modern mood ring. They measure your heart rate, they measure your performance. But the fashion industry, it was one niche that went after the wearable tech industry, and that has not succeeded. And that was a micro marketing strategy, and that did not work. Another question, does marketing research discuss micro marketing for wearable technology? And I did find articles that discuss the need for niche marketing for wearable tech and the need for wearable tech to differentiate itself. Another question, how can a wearable tech company use a micro marketing strategy? And again, it became very clear that developing a micro marketing strategy was necessary, but that it also required an understanding of the macroeconomic factors for the targeted demographic and industry. For the key takeaway, again, and this is standard marketing practice, you need to understand the customer. Who is your customer? What do they need? What do they want? And the niche markets for the wearable technology industry include the consumables, the smartwatches, the Aura, the rings, the mood rings, the smart clothing. There's also a niche market for the military, for gamers, and for healthcare. Another important marketing concept that should be included in a framework is, what is the customer's decision impulse? For the consumables, it tends to be an impulse buy. Not necessarily like walking into this grocery store and grabbing something off the shelf. Some of the impulse buy can involve some thought, but it also includes relatability to a brand. Apple captures this perfectly. And they need another reason for identifying with the product, whether it's the fitness industry, the gamers, or the fashion. So, but you're going on a feel for the consumer, for the customer. It's not as much of a technical need. It's more of a, this will make me feel good. For healthcare and military, Wearables, you need to understand that the customer's decision impulse is a lot more complicated. And it requires a more macro marketing approach. The acquisition process in itself is makes things more complicated. So you have to not only get the impulse with the actual user, but you also need to convince the procurement office and other layers of administration that it's a good decision to buy. So if you wanted to enter into the healthcare or the military wearable market, you're going to need to do a lot more work and understanding the purchase process. So understanding the type of purchase decision impulse, it requires micro and macro marketing knowledge. The research and my understanding, the failure of my hypothesis that a micro marketing strategy would work led to questions such as what differentiates the successful wearable technology companies from those that have failed? How are new marketing strategies altering competition between startups? Do or should different industries in the wearable tech market use different strategies? I think that one I found a little bit about in terms of the micro and marketing and understanding the purchase decision. What new marketing methods can best identify consumer needs? Can wearable tech provide a platform for marketing itself? I mean, that was actually one of the quite a few research articles discussed using the wearable tech itself to collect data on marketing, and but that also leads to concerns about privacy. And then the last question that came up for me for future research was how can marketers deploy these technologies successful in a firm strategy? Going into conclusions, wearable tech has been looking for a successful marketing strategy since the calculator watch was introduced in 1975. I think this is a picture of a Casio. And a marketing framework should include a strategy to move from idea to prototype to product testing to market entry. That goes back to the one of my earlier slides. And within that strategy, wearable tech companies should look to identify and create a storyline about the audience or customer. And they need to identify channels and the platform for selling and establish a measurement for success. Who are you and what is it that you want to be able to do with this product? A company should identify their customer segments, their preferences, and their pain points and behaviors. Pain points for wearable tech tend to be battery life, data privacy. The biggest one, surprisingly, is that the information just isn't useful. Again, you can turn your Garmin off so that your score looks better, your time is better on your run. What does that tell you? It tells you nothing. You can make Strava. You can make yourself feel better by going after sections where you beat other people. But what does that really tell you? What do you really need to know? The other pain point that came out in the research is that consumers want wearable tech that works well with others. So they want to be able to use their Apple Watch and combine it with another tech. They want to be able to, if you're on Google, if you're on Microsoft, you want to be able to. It doesn't matter what the platform is, but the wearable tech should be able to connect to other platforms. It shouldn't be proprietary. The storyline should include keywords, topics, and message content, and promotion plan for search engine optimization, the social networking plan, and the link building. This is drilling down a little bit more into the details of the components of the framework. But that was another concept that came out in the research as being very important. The content strategy should include both macro and micro marketing techniques. So I think this was the key finding. Social media channels should be used to promote and distribute the content, and also to learn and understand the customer and the industry position. Again, who am I as a customer, and how do I fit in this tech world? What do I need? Wearable tech products that are single use and proprietary with regard to communications software applications are more likely to fail to capture market share. So, again, you've got to be willing to share. Finally, in conclusion, through the research, what I was able to develop was a marketing framework for wearable tech companies that should identify and understand the customer and strategize to identify differentiation and the interoperability of the product within the industry. The marketing framework should include goals for time of entry and product attributes. It should include the target audience, competitive landscapes, your story, your channels, and the tactical plan.